Hey guys and gals, welcome back to the Farmer and Sons Garage channel. So this is episode 12 of the Pickle Build. Welcome back. It's been a while since we've been on the truck. We've been doing other things, car shows and stuff. Where we're at is we have the body drop down where we want it, have the back of the bed bolted to the frame. We've got the, as we showed you in the last video, we've got the fuel filler where we want it in an old toolbox to where you flip the toolbox open, and that's where you pump the gas in. What we're going to work on today is taking off this front core support of the Crown Vic that's still on here. We haven't taken that off yet, and we will have to trim probably about 6 or 7 inches, I think, off the front of the actual frame of the Crown Vic, and we'll show you where we cut that when we get to that here in just a minute in the video. On this core support, on each side, there's 2 big body mounts, and you can see it right in here with the little rubber bushings in here. It's 15 millimeter is the size, and it is a very long bolt. You put it on the bottom down here, and I had to use a big cheater bar, and for the first 50 turns, the nut doesn't move, but it does break loose at the end, so you will have to have a 15 millimeter up top to hold it to finish that off, and we've got that loosened up where it's just hand tight, so you can see how long that bolt is and the travel it has. So we will take that one off, do the same on this side. I left it just so I can show you. And that one doesn't want to come out. Putting up a fight. There we go. So that's got the core support loose. As you can see now, nothing else is holding it. I do have, let's see, oh, the inner fender's still bolted to it, so we'll have to take that loose. I've already unbolted it from this side. I do have a couple of grounds that we mounted back to this just to have easy access to them, so I'll have to take those off before we pull that out of the way. So we will take that off. I've done that on this side as well, so we'll have to take the grounds off on both sides, and I'll mark those just so we don't forget to reattach those. We'll take the bolt loose from the inner fender, and then we will pull that off. We'll be back in a little bit. So we have taken the bottom radiator support off, and it just sits like this up underneath. It's got the 2 places where in these rubber like washer or gasket things that it sits down in. You've got 2 15 millimeter nuts you have to take off on each side, and this just drops right out. You do have to kind of take your hands and push up and down on these little tabs because this goes around that bottom radiator hose. That's what locks it into place. It's a support for that hose, so it's just not down there flapping. So as other guys have discussed on their videos, we will have to drill out, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 spot welds we'll have to drill out. Then this piece, we're going to end up doing this 180. Then this will flip and go to that side because with these 2 bolts on each side, we will slide this back, which will give us about 1 5/8 inches extra room for the radiator. And we will use the existing, what was the back bolt hole on each side will now become the front bolt hole. And then we'll have to either use a self-tapper, or depending on how we cut the frame, I'm thinking I might be able to stick my hand in there and drop a bolt down through, tack weld it into place on the frame, and then just screw a nut on the bottom of it. But we'll see that in a minute. But anyway, I'm going to drill these spot welds out, weld this back on the opposite direction, and we'll come back when we're done with that. All right, so I have drilled out the 4 spot welds that were on here, and it was sitting, let's see, this direction. So I've drilled those out. We're going to flip this to the other side. So what you, doesn't really matter on these 2 on the top because you're going to be switching sides, but I made sure I did not drill all the way through because I'm going to use that surface to reattach. So The two holes in the middle are going to line back exactly where they were. So you'll just flip that over. We'll need to clean that up just a little bit here in a second. I've done a little bit on that. So I'm going to need to mark these two holes or where they need to be. So the way I did it when I drilled it out, well, I don't see the other drill bit I had, but I had like a 5/8 or a 5/16 drill bit. Is what I, there it is. It's what I used to start. And because I didn't want to go all the way through, once I got it rounded off good, I took a little small drill bit, and actually smaller than that. I've switched to do this, and kind of work my way around inside that to hollow that out and keep it from going all the way down through there. Because again, I want to be able to weld back to that. So then I've cleaned this up with the wire wheel. We'll paint all this once we've done. So we are going to mark, once I line those two back up, the two holes in the middle where I drilled the spot welds out. We'll line that back up and hold that in place. And I'm going to take the drill and try to center that hole. And then pop one over here. And all I'm doing is just making the mark where the hole is, because I'm going to need to clean this off. Now I don't want to make too much bare metal because you don't want. Okay, so we've got that cleaned off and got us a good weldable surface. So we'll slap the welder on here, dial it down a little bit. So we got it tacked on there pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and we'll probably stop filming. I'm going to go ahead and weld all that in, and I'll come back and show you once I've got it welded up, and we'll clean it up, and we'll show you where we're at when we get that done. All right, so I've got those 4 spot welds welded back in. So I'm going to clean it up real quick. Glasses on. And we'll hit it with the grinder, so kill the mic.
Well, better late than never.
Okay, so that's not for show anyway. That's just to hold this on there. And all that's doing, all that support is for is that rear radiator hose. I'm going to kill the welder. So you can see I left a couple. There's like a little gap there right in the corner. But I mean, I've got it tacked on. You know, it's not going anywhere. It's solid as a rock. So that'll hold that radiator hose in. And I'll shoot some black. While I've got this off, while it's off the car, it's starting to rain on us. We will go ahead and clean this completely up, and I've got Rust-Oleum semi-gloss black. We'll coat that up real good with that and keep it from rusting out in the future just to do it right. It's better to take time, clean everything up while you're doing it, paint it while you've got it off, and then when you throw it on there, you're done with it. So we'll finish that up, put that back in place. The next step will be taking the top radiator brackets off and sliding those back. And we'll get back to that in a minute. All right, I'm going to show you where we're at. I've already remounted the bottom one, putting it back with flipping it after I did the welding, after the paint dried and everything. So on these upper brackets, you can see that I had to notch, cut a little triangle shape out for this ABS module, the anti-lock brakes module. It's going to slide back there and tuck right up under that. So I had to notch that out so that would clear back in there, if you can see that, where it's tucked in. So what I did is to use the holes that were already there, the threaded holes and the same bolts, I just drilled a hole here and a hole here, because I'm going to slide this back. So where this hole and this hole would have been is where I'm going to be here and here now. So I'm moving this back to where the back 2 holes are now going to be the front 2 holes. And I've got that ready to put back in. Got a couple of lock washers to throw on top. Maybe. So this is going to slide this back about 1 5/8 inches. Actually, I got to put this back on top. The little bracket, I took that off and cleaned everything up. So this little bracket that holds it just pops down in and slides back in. And then it has a little captive nut on the bottom. And let's see. Gotta find play search a tool. That's where I spend most of my time. All right. So we'll tighten that back up. Snug it into place. All right. So this is ready to put back on. And that's, I'm gonna pop that into place. Okay, get these bolts ready to drop back in. So this is going to be pushing this back about just a little over, between 1.5 inches and 3/4 is where that's going to end up putting this at. Okay. That's got that side. So on the passenger side, kind of the same scenario. Take it out, unbolt 3 bolts. Take the, you don't have to take this thing off of here. I just did it, kind of cleaned this up again while we had it off. Try to make it look good again. Okay, and again, you can see I did a much better job on this one of lining these up. And the way I did that is when I took the 2 off, and I should have done this to start with, but you realize how you screwed up after you screw up, not before you screw up. So the 2 factory rear bolts, I took that one and set it on this one with it flipped around to line up those 2 holes, and then took a little punch and punched the 2 marks where they sat on this once I had it lined up even, and then drilled these holes out. So you can tell I didn't have to round them out to make it fit. I've got these to where they look really nice, and they're ready to slap back on here. So we'll pop that back on. And then okay, so that's got our radiator back in, locked in place. So now we're tucked back in about 1.5 inches. So we are ready now to trim the front frame off. And when I did mine, I dropped it down and left a little kind of like an L shape with the bottom part of the frame. I don't remember how much I left, maybe 2.5, 3 inches sticking out. So I cut down and then kind of cut forward and trimmed off. I'm going to do the same thing on this one because that's what I ended up setting my gravel guard or valance, whatever you want, grill guard that runs around the front of the grill. That actually ended up sitting on that to help me line up. Now Laban's might be about 1/2 inch lower than mine, so we may have to bend those down if that's the case. And then of course fab up front core support mount. But I'm going to, and when you do this, you have to be careful and watch the radiator, of course. Watch these power steering cooling lines. And then on this side over here, you got the transmission cooling lines that stick out. And we may have to trim the grill and the front valance or the front grill gravel guard for these. I've seen others that trim those when they put this back in to let those fit around those. So I'm going to get the Sawzall and the cutting wheel, and we're going to cut right about where this bracket ends, I think. and go ahead and try to take this off. So we'll pause the video for just a second till we get the tools ready for that. Okay, something I didn't point out, as I mentioned over here, I notched this upper radiator support or radiator bracket that sits on the frame and holds the radiator in place. On the passenger side, I cut out a little triangle chunk I hope you can see in here. So when it went back into place, I had to cut that little triangle shape off and kind of smooth it out so that this, I think that's it's an air conditioning line, has room, whatever it is. I think it's air conditioning. Yeah, it's air conditioning. So I've got room for it now to sit there. And of course it doesn't move or bounce around, and that won't move either. So there's a good 1/4 inch gap or 1/8 inch gap. I can slide that between there. So I forgot to mention I did cut that out earlier. So when you do yours, you will need to cut that out to get this bracket to slide back in under that. So just wanted to mention that because I left that out the first time we went through. Okay, as we're starting the cutting on the front, and I saw someone else do this in their videos. I can't remember if it was Rudy's Resurrection, Fred with Rudy's Resurrection, or Stacy Rhines with Scrap to Art Metalworks on his blue and white truck, or might have been John with Dead Animal Garage. One of those three. I've been watching those three over again, just on theirs. So what I've done is where this original Crown Vic body support was, I cut those off with this cutting wheel. Did the same thing, which this is the one from the other side, but you can see I cut both of them off because we may end up reusing these for the radiator support or for the core support on Laban's. May end up using those with some of those body mounts and fabbing up something for that. We will see, because we've still got the supports that bolted through. So we're getting ready to cut the frame. Like I said, I'm going to try to L shape that. So I think on each side, I'll probably use the cutting wheel to start to make a groove to start with, and then we'll take the Sawzall, and then I will take an old piece. This is the chunk out of the bedside we cut out. I will slide that down in here and either block it or brace it or tie it in there some way, or maybe have Laban hold it so that the Sawzall blade, if it comes through, will hit this and won't hit any of the stuff we don't want to tear up. So I'm just going to run, which of course my bolt for that is right under this. So I'm going to cut right up in front of this, I guess it'd be the second little bump with the hole at the top. That's going to be my cutting line down, and then I'm going to leave the bottom of this. So I'm going to come down and go out this way like an L shape or a 90-degree angle, and leave a couple or 3 inches of this sitting out in front of the radiator. I'll trim more as I need to. But anyway, I'm just going to go down through here and then cut a line across this way, and then I'll get the Sawzall out and I'll show you. I'm just showing you what we're going to do. No reason to film that because I'm just pretty much cutting the frame, cutting it up through here. We'll do that on both sides. We'll come back and show you once we've got that done. All right, so we have cut off the front bumper, or the front frame, probably about 7, I think it was right at 7 inches. So the first thing I did was cut this end piece off. I made those marks I was talking about earlier, but I went ahead and cut the end piece off, and then this little about 3.5 inch section. So that's how much we've cut off. And actually, when I was showing you earlier, I was saying I was going to go right down this line. After watching a couple other YouTubers on theirs, I decided to go on the back side of that to give us the extra room. We're going to need that extra 1/2 inch, 3/4 inches. And as I said, I'm leaving this out, and that's how Stacy with Scrap to Art Metalworks, and then he boxed his in and boxed this in down here. Now we'll have to see where our truck sits. We may have to trim some more of this off. We may have to trim down just a little bit, or we may even have to go below it with something. But just wanted to show you how much we cut off, where we've got it at, which I said is behind that second hump that was out here. We cut the first hump off with that second little, not an indention, but a little stick out part right behind it. So we're going to set the tripod up, and this is going to be our first attempt at just test fitting the front clip. All right. So that's the first time since we've taken this front clip off that we've even tried to put it back on or get close. So we got the Crown Vic core support off, front of the Crown Vic frame off, 7 inches of it, and got it slotted out kind of the way we want it to be. Might need to trim just a little bit more on it. So we're going to have to take your truck front clip back off, cut the back of those radiator core support that stick in further than it needs to on this. We'll just flatten that and then we'll test fit it again. But I think we'll wrap this video up with where we are right now. I'm wanting to show you all the cuts and everything to get to this point on the front, and moving the radiator back on what you do on the bottom, what you do on the upper brackets, and other guys have done that too. But those of you that are watching along with us, want you to see how you do that without having to go search around on other videos. And we will stop the video here for just a second, and we will finish up with a Bible verse as we always do. Okay, so we're going to wrap up like we always try to do with a Bible verse. So if you're not into that, you can go ahead and sign off from the video. Appreciate you watching up to this point. And for those of you that are okay with that, and one thing before that, the front bumper we've just mocked up here just to kind of see, because I did the bumper flip on mine. I saw one other guy did that. I think it was B. Langer or Blanger, however it will say it, B-L-A-N-G-E-R, on the Slick 60s forum. Had done that on a dark blue unibody, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I saw that picture, and it's the only one I'd ever seen that way. So I stole his idea. The flipped upside down bumper is not my idea, but I like it so much, I did it on my truck. And Laban likes it, so we're just mocking it up on his to see what that looks like. So that's going to be kind of the Farmer and Son signature touch, I guess, with a flipped bumper. So we'll go ahead and finish off. And like I said in the previous video, I think it was episode 11, we want you guys to share your Bible verses in the comments below. So feel free. I had a guy add one to the last video we did. If you haven't already put a Bible verse on, toss one in the comments under this video, and we will keep pulling those as we go forward. So I will read the one we've selected for this episode, and it is from, hang on just a second. It is from Clint McDaniel, 2563 is his YouTube channel, and it was Psalm 40, verses 1, 2, and 3. It says, I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. So thank you, Clint, for sharing that Bible verse. We appreciate you watching, commenting. We especially appreciate you sharing your Bible verse. And we hope you guys will continue to post the verses you like, and we'll continue to share them. And thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We appreciate you guys so much. Until next time, be blessed.